Good evening, everyone, and welcome to Highland Presbyterian Church, our second concert for the year from the series of Dorothy Rose Smith concert series. And we're so glad that you came out tonight to join us here in the sanctuary. And for those who are watching online, welcome also to this wonderful concert. This whole series started 22 years ago when we did our first concert. Somebody purchased from the members of the church this glorious, glorious pipe organ as a memorial for her husband. So after the organ was delivered a year later, I happened to chair that committee for that organ, searching all over the country, and it was wonderful. After the organ was built, which took a year, we decided we would do a concert throughout the year. We did 5 organ concerts, and they were very successful, so we decided the next year maybe to do 1 concert to follow through. Well, that was 22 years ago, and we're still doing concerts for Highland and for the community, so we are really pleased that you could be part of it. These concerts are free will offering and our wonderful patrons list. Support them all. So when you leave tonight, if you feel so inclined, there's a plastic box out in the narthex for you to drop your $50 bill in, and we take larger. But we appreciate if you would contribute. And for those who are watching online, if you go on Highland's website, you will see an opportunity for you to deliver an information on the website, but be sure to mark your check to the DRS or Dorothy Rose Smith Committee. Next, in the month of June, June 9th, will be the last concert of this series, but we start again in September for the 21-22 concerts. June 9th is a wonderful choral concert by the Highland Concert Choir with guest singers, soloists, instrumentalists, of wonderful praise music, different sacred music, wonderful selection of anthems and old-fashioned hymns. So it'll be a wonderful evening to come out and join us here. I know some of you who are watching from home are looking at this group up here and they're saying, I think that one guy was the one who cleaned my ears out. Nah, that's not him. You put your glasses on. And then they're looking around and saying, do you remember when Mother had her knee replaced? There's a guy up there that looks like the doctor who replaced Mother's knee, but he was much younger then, so it must be a different guy. Well, it was 25 years ago she had it. Well, it could be the same guy. And there's the guy that did my heart catheterization. Well, tonight, they're not doctors. They're not doing any medical stuff. They're playing with their instruments. And we are delighted to have the Auscultation Brass here to give us a concert. Please join me in welcoming them to this evening.
Thank you very much. And I'm Dr. Gerald Rothacker, and on behalf of the Auscultation Brass, I want to tell you it's really good to be back, and it's really good to see you back in front of us. So thanks for coming out. You know, like everyone, we didn't expect this COVID pandemic, but it did affect us. I'm retired, so I was able to sequester like you maybe did. But 10 of our docs, they were working docs, and they had to go to work every day and get through this COVID thing. And in fact, one of our docs, Dr. Tom Anderson, contracted COVID in August and had a bit of a time recovering, but I am happy to report he is fully recovered and back. And Tom, stand up and take a bow. You're one of our healthcare heroes. Now, in June, when we started to learn about the COVID and figure out what caused it and what we could do to prevent it, we're one of the few music groups that resumed our practices. And Dr. Bob Delser gave us a call beginning of June and said, let's practice Sunday night in my parking lot. So the first week of June, we were out in his parking lot every Sunday night throughout the summer and early fall practicing. If you drove up and down Oregon Pike, you would have seen us out there in a big circle practicing. So we sort of had a little bit of a head start, and then come the colder and darker days. Highland by then had good protocols in place and allowed us to come and practice in the fellowship hall that you passed on the way in. So we've been inside since then, and we follow the protocols. We take our temperature when we walk in the door, and we wear our masks. At first we did initially, and I have to tell you, there were a few incisors almost knocked out trying to sneak our mouthpiece up under the mask. So it was a really good thing when all of us were fully vaccinated, and we feel comfortable now eliminating the masks among ourselves. In fact, I have to ask, how many here are vaccinated? Oh, that is just wonderful. Thank you, congratulations. 3 of us are vaccinators. Let's see, I'm in men's shoes. Bill, you're in menswear, right? And Kirby, you're in jewelry, I think. Jewelry, yeah, so 3 of us have been vaccinating up a storm, and we're glad all of you are vaccinated. That's the way we're gonna get rid of this. If you wonder why our brass bells aren't covered, I want you to know that we researched that, and what produces the sound you hear is the wave sound form. It's the sound wave. It's not the air rushing through our bell. In fact, I did a little experiment with my trombone and tried to blow out a candle with my trombone. It's playing at a forte, and I just about singed the bell, and the flame on the candle didn't even flicker. So you can feel safe sitting here tonight. We're going to move ahead, and we're going to do our first number, past the anthem. And this is now 50 years old. And I have to think that when John Lennon wrote Imagine, he never imagined this COVID pandemic.
Good evening. My name is Joe Breslin. I'm a retired urologist, and I play the euphonium, which is a small tuba. The Radetsky March is by Johann Strauss Sr., and it's dedicated to Field Marshal Joseph Radetsky of Austria, who was victorious in the Battle of Custoza in 1848. Over the years, it has become so popular that it is now the unofficial encore piece for each New Year's Day concert in Vienna. Before the piece is played, the conductor reminds the audience, as I remind you, to start clapping during the second chorus. Not before, but during the second chorus. We hope you enjoy this piece.
Good evening. My name's Bob Delser, and I'm one of the trumpet players. You'll see most of us playing the trumpets up in this first row. You'll see a couple flugelhorns get passed around here or there. This is a big night. Jerry doesn't usually let us do any of the talking. So for the first year, he has relinquished this. I have lots of pages. He might take it back. So our next composer is Victor Ewald, and he was a full-time professor of civil engineering in St. Petersburg, Russia. These guys haven't heard this stuff, so they're fascinated, I can tell you. In the late 1800s and the early 1900s. and he was just a part-time musician. His colleagues in the engineering world commented that the industry of brick and cement is beholden to him for his contributions. Some of our members wish that he would have just stuck to the cement and the brick. He did play cello, among other instruments, and his music teacher encouraged him to immerse himself in music whenever the opportunity arose. Well, he became a member of a circle of amateur musicians that would gather on Friday nights with the likes of Mussorgsky and Rimsky-Korsakov at the home of Belyaev. Don't ask me anything about him, I don't know anything about him. For discussion performances of varied types. And there he actually played the cello in a quintet, and he started composing music. And quintet music for brass was virtually unheard of at that point. So this actually is the second of his pieces. Historically, there was another one that was released first, but early on it was deemed to be unplayable. Now, some of us have thought about this piece was unplayable as well. So there were some good things that came out of COVID, and for us it was the additional time to practice. And this piece that initially seemed to be unplayable became playable for us. It is in 3 movements, and I may pick up the mic again after the first movement to see if any of you guys want to leave. No, and that's not you, Tom. You got to stay. But anyhow, we've made really extremely significant progress on the piece, and I think most of us enjoy playing it. So I hope you enjoy listening as well. There's a reason why Jerry didn't let us take the microphone, because clearly we don't know how to turn it off. Now, most times we would ask you to hold your applause in between movements of a piece like that, but we're just so happy to get through it. We appreciate all the applause we can get. Now, if it looks like we're changing pages rapidly and beads of sweat are coming off of our brow, it's because we are. So you can see multiple pages flying, and the main reason that we're taking a break here is that we can all get our pages in order for the next movement. The other thing that I forgot to commend you guys on is your clapping in the Radetsky March was just terrific. And so now we get cocky. What's challenging about this movement is that it's in 5/4. So for most of you musicians out there, it means 5 beats in a measure of 4, quarter note gets 1 beat, no big deal, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Perfect. In the slow beat, we've got it down. But then as you'll find out, our tempo picks up a little bit, and then the tempo goes 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So if you have a conductor who's going 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, shoulder's going to fall off. He's going to need Jerry to inject him at intermission. So we're going to count it 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3. So put your hands together. That's pretty good. We're thinking of adding a percussion section, and you guys are all invited. So this is our second movement. This was not on the program until just a few weeks ago, and even on Sunday night there was some debate whether or not we should cut it. Tom. Hope you enjoy our second movement. That's right. That's right. And don't clap. We'll be in big trouble. We played that so well, we may never play that again. So we all will be watching you guys as you head out for intermission to see who is going to be walking in 5-4. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3. Don't twist any ankles, hips, or knees. Our final movement is a little bit more on the straightforward side. Again, we're going to impress you with our dynamics in this piece. We're going to get so soft you won't even hear us. We will have a little change in tempo near the end to keep your attention, but enjoy our third movement.
much. And I don't know if you noticed or not, but Dr. Delser, he's not only our lead trumpet, he also sort of is our conductor. I don't know exactly how he does it to do all these things at one time, but throughout the whole program, you'll see that left hand going while the right hand is holding the trumpet and also playing the notes. So it's my job. I get it now when it's time that the band needs a break, because they know I'll talk a lot. So I'm going to start off talking by introducing the rest of the back row here. And I'll introduce Miss Kirby Stromeier on French horn. Kirby is our operating room nurse. She's currently an RN, but by the end of the summer, she will be awarded her bachelor's in nursing. We're all very proud of her. And next to her is Dr. Bill Lovett. Bill is a family doc, and he's in the family practice faculty at Tower Health and joins us every week from Reading. And I should also introduce, let's see, Tom's been introduced, Dr. Joe's been introduced, Dr. Michael Chambers on trombone. And Mike has a bunch of different roles. He is an oral surgeon, and that sort of combines medicine, surgery, and dentistry. So he's sort of taken over the role of our dentist because of the passing of our beloved Dr. Bob Delser Sr. So we're happy to have Mike here on trombone for many different reasons. Our next number is opera. We're staying with the classical part of the program, and it's another challenging number, but you'll be happy to know not the length of the quintet number 1. And it is the Nessum Dorma from Giacomo Puccini's Turin. And this was his last opera. He never even quite finished it when he died in 1924. So his friend, Franco Alfonso, actually finished it. And the Nessum Dorma was made really popular when Pavarotti sang it at, of all places, the World Cup in 1990. And since that time, any tenor who's worth his salt has made a recording of Nessum Dorma, and most sopranos that have the range, because it takes a big range to do this. And I often think that this could be actually the patron song of doctors. And it should be like the song that we have in our hearts for our medical residency training program and our night call programs, because Nessum Dorma, if you translate it from Italian, means let no one sleep. And that characterizes many of our residency days. Now, as the playbill would say, playing the part of tenor this evening will be our French horn section. So enjoy. Thank you, Bill and Kirby. That was beautiful. And after our next number, the next number, we're going to take a short intermission, only about 10 minutes, since we won't be doing an offering in the sanctuary, but on your way out. And I would just say that restrooms are on the right. There's 2 of them in the hallway by the library. There's 2 down that hall. And if somebody in a blue blazer and red tie comes up, please let them cut in line in front of you. Thank you. Thank you. Now, for our next number, the last number of the first half, I have to tell you that one of the things that COVID did, it affected all of our lives, but it sort of put the kibosh on a 50th anniversary celebration that my wife and I were going to have. We married very young, and with 51 quickly approaching, I'm going to dedicate this next number to my lovely wife, Carla, and she's my girl.
Thank you. I'm Bill Roberts. I'm a trumpet player, and I'm a family physician. And that rousing piece was The Liberty Bell by John Philip Sousa, also known as, to some of us, the theme song for Monty Python's Flying Circus. Auscultation brass. Some people stumble on that. You know, maybe, Jerry, we should be called inoculation brass or vaccination brass. But we were once introduced as osculation brass. What is that? What's osculation? Osculation. It's the act of kissing. Osculation. And see where we're going with this? So we are not osculation brass. But if we were, this next piece could be our theme song, because Valse de Baiser is French for Waltz of Kisses. So, Valse de Baiser by Jean-Francois Michel. I thought we would have that up on the board someplace. But, so, by Osculation Brass.
Well, good news. They took a vote back there, and I was allowed to have the microphone for one more piece. It was looking a little dicey after my first performance. So our next number is Amazing Grace, and it was written in 1772 by the Englishman John Newton, and it was a reflection of his personal transformation. The young Mr. Newton was a bit of a rebel, always fighting authority. He tried to desert the Royal Navy. Later, his crew abandoned him in West Africa. No, Tom, he was not a tuba player. He was rescued only to be forced to be a servant on a slave trader trip. And once rescued and heading home, a violent storm nearly sank the ship, and he cried out to God for help. However, his newfound faith was short-lived, as he became a slave ship master himself for several years and had multiple trips back and forth to Africa, and he was not a very good guy in his own words. In 1754, after becoming violently ill, he abandoned his seafaring ways and he devoted his life to God. 10 years later, he was ordained as an Anglican priest and became a popular preacher and a hymn writer, composing 280 hymns. You can see the inspiration for those famous lyrics that we all know so well. In 1835, the words for Amazing Grace were set to a popular tune, New Britain by William Walker. And one other interesting note is that the third verse appeared years later in Harriet Beecher Stowe's Uncle Tom's Cabin, and traditionally is now sung as the final verse. Followers of the Lancaster British Brass Band hopefully saw our Lancaster British Brass Band in a virtual rendition of this, and we released it on YouTube back in Easter. So if you haven't seen that, go on. And just as a subtle commercial for next year's series, the Lancaster British Brass Band is looking forward to performing next May. Also, Amazing Grace was recently performed by this group of ringers up here at a funeral of one of our longtime members and trumpeters, and most notably my father. This February, as our band returned from a long absence, and they did a wonderful performance. And truth be told, we had a bit of a ringer that night, as playing the solo part was the talented Doug Albert. Sorry, you're stuck with us today. Tonight, Andy and I have a tough act to follow, and Andy, in the final line where it says Dad on it, you got to bring that part out, okay? So the members of the band would like to dedicate tonight's Canadian brass rendition to not just my father, but to the members of all those that we've lost this last year or so in this crazy pandemic. So we hope you enjoy Amazing Grace.
Testing. I guess it works a little bit, but the acoustics are pretty good. So to me, it sounds like this microphone actually is not working, but we're hearing us okay? All right. So our next piece is Armed Forces Salute. And it's a collection of all the theme songs of all of our military services. And my name is Dan Diehl, and I'm a family doctor for 30 plus years down Willow Street. And I've had several relatives who were veterans, including my father, who was a World War II vet. Our other members of our trumpets that haven't been introduced yet are Rolf Anderson. Have a round of applause. He's our cardiologist. He's with the heart group, okay? And I trained under Dick Mann, you know, the guy from the Mayo Clinic, man, and the heart group was everything. And they hire this hot shot, you know, like 20-some years ago or whatever. And then all of a sudden, a year or two ago, he joins our group, and I'm just in awe that I'm playing next to the Rolf Anderson, who's doing cardiac caths, you know, and on call. Just even last night, telling me, you know, all he does, you know, in the spirit of Dick Mann and Gensler and Galt and all those peons of the cardiology of Lancaster. So great to have Rolf with us. And then our member, he's one of our youngest members, is Andy Lutz Cannon. He's a family doctor. He's a family doctor in the Penn State system, and he trained in Reading with Bill Lovett, and somehow he got into our group, and he's married to a pediatrician, and they have how many children? 2. They got a couple children. So he's joined at the ages when me and Jerry and Bill Roberts started, and we're like so old now, and 30 years ago. Oh God, I know. That was young bucks. That's good to have a little. Always good to have youth in our group. So all those who are veterans in the audience, just raise your hand for now. Yeah. Now, do we have any? Let's have a round of applause for them. Do we have any combat veterans who are in any of the wars? World War II, Korea, Vietnam? Probably not. Yeah, and we're losing World War II veterans left and right, as they're all in their 90s. Our departed Bob Delser Sr., who his son mentioned, he was in the Air Force. And we have, what branch? Navy. Yeah, Navy man in Joe Breslin here. So we have some vets in our group. And Bill. Yes, Bill was Air Force, right. I knew there was a third one. So this piece was arranged by Yari Villanueva. He's a retired Air Force veteran. And Yari Villanueva was a bugler and trumpet player in the Washington, D.C. area. And he was the go-to guy to play taps at all kinds of funerals at Arlington, Virginia. And Yari Villanueva is a wonderful arranger of music for us, and we play a lot of his pieces. And so this is a piece that he did. The themes, of course, for we'll start with the Army, is the Army keeps rolling along. It should start out as the caisson song. Do you all know what a caisson is? A caisson is a two-wheeled cart that carries ammunition. And it's probably derived from French, and it's probably derived around the 1800s or 1700s. My most famous experience with a caisson, of course, was a very seminal experience in my life as well as yours, was in 1963 with the bearing of the body of John F. Kennedy in Washington, D.C. on a caisson with the muffled drums. And I'll never forget that in 4th grade, and that was how I knew what a caisson was. The words are now changed more to the Army keeps rolling along, and it was, the caisson song was in the early 1900s, but it was only adopted in the 1950s as the official Army song. The next is the Marine Hymn. That's the oldest of all of the songs, as you know. As you know of the Marine Hymn, it's from the halls of Montezuma from the Mexican War to the shores of Tripoli, the Barbary pirates. Remember, the Marines were started in the 1700s after the Revolutionary War, one of our oldest branches. The next is Anchors Aweigh from the U.S. Navy. I notice in Lancaster, we're all landlubbers here, but when we have veterans stand for these anthems, the most people who stand are Navy guys who came from Lancaster, never even seen the water, and they're all farmers, and they all were in the Navy. And Anchors Aweigh is the name of it. Remember, to weigh anchor is from a Dutch expression in the old Dutch sailing days, and that means to lift up your anchor, of course. It doesn't mean to bring it down, but it means lift up your anchors and let's get going. The next theme is the Air Force. That's Off We Go in the Wild Blue Yonder. Again, that was commissioned by Hap Arnold, who was head of the Air Force in World War II. And it was commissioned by Hap Arnold for them to have a theme, a fight song, when it was the Army Air Corps. And then in 1942, it was changed to the Army Air Force. And then in 1947, a separate branch called the Air Force was created. And the words had to be changed a little bit as the name of the group changed. My father served under Hap Arnold in the 15th Air Force as a B-17 pilot. And the last one we'll play is called Semper Paratus. And do you know which branch that represents? Yeah, the Coast Guard. And you all know what Semper Paratus means? Always ready. Okay? So that will end with the Coast Guard. You veterans are free to stand, of course, when your branch is played, as we do with all of our concerts. And we dedicate this to Bob Delser, Sr., tonight. Thank you. Yes, and thank you, veterans. There are only 0.4% of our American population in the military presently who take care of 99.6 of us now. It's amazing. They're still quite an elite. You are still quite an elite bunch of people. Our next piece, yes, well, we go to something totally different. And now for something completely different, to quote Monty Python. The next is Goldfinger. Y'all know Goldfinger? Yeah, Goldfinger is our next song. It's of course the theme to the James Bond movie, Goldfinger, of the same name, 1964. It was written by John Barry, the music, and Leslie Brickus and Anthony Newley wrote lyrics for it. John Barry wrote the famous James Bond theme. He wrote the music for about 6 or 7 of the James Bond movies. He also wrote the music and the movie score for Dances with Wolves and Out of Africa. So he's quite a prolific writer, composer. Leslie Brickus also was involved in many movies and plays. One was Stop the World, I Want to Get Off, and The Roar of the Grease Paint Smell of the Crowd. And his partner Anthony Newley was always on Ed Sullivan singing songs from that, you know, on a wonderful day like today, and Who Can I Turn To When Nobody Leaves Me, with his very Cockney-type accent. So I always remember him on Ed Sullivan, Anthony Newley. Of course, who sung it for the movie was Shirley Bassey, and it was her one top 100 hit for that time. And it's probably the most remembered Bond theme for a movie. It's probably one of the most famous movie themes of the 1960s, though it wasn't even nominated for an Oscar that year, and has stood the test of time. Of course, it's based on a book by Ian Fleming. I'm reading the Bond books in order now. Goldfinger is number 6. The movie was number 3. I don't know why they had them out of order. The movie was their first big blockbuster for Bond movies. He established himself as James Bond with the Aston Martin and Q and all the gadgets and everything. And so the Bond movie was really launched as a sensation and a series with the production of Goldfinger. As I told you, my dad was he was in the 15th Air Force, and he actually worked for the OSS. He did many missions, night missions for resistance forces with Bill Donovan and the OSS. So I always say my dad was a spy. So I had this. And as you know, Ian Fleming was a spy. He knew all the spycraft from his work in World War II, and he's just started in Jamaica every summer vacation, writing a book every year starting in 1953, James Bond book. So he took the name James Bond from this ornithologist, from this bird specialist who wrote a book about the birds of the Caribbean. And the guy is from Philadelphia, the James Bond ornithologist. And I'm in my office about 2 to 3 months ago, and this guy that I know, he's at Willow Valley, he's a patient of mine, and he worked for the State Department of the CIA. He didn't tell me, because I guess if he told me, he'd have to kill me. So he says, yeah, he says, my father knew the real James Bond. And I go, how the heck do you know the real James? Well, yeah, this guy grew up on the main line, Philadelphia, and his father was, of course, from Philadelphia, and he and this James Bond, they knew each other. And so there was a connection there. And what happened was Bond and Ian Fleming were in Jamaica together, and they became friends. And Ian Fleming loved the name James Bond for a spy so much that he wrote his first book, Casino Royale, named him James Bond. But he didn't tell the real James Bond until people started telling him that he had become the name of the most famous spy in the world in the 1950s. And they had, their wives and them had a great laugh together down in Jamaica, down in Ian Fleming's estate called Goldeneye, which again was the title of another Bond movie, Goldeneye. So without further ado, this introduction is much longer than the song itself. So enjoy. It gave us a good rest for our lips, but enjoy our short version of Goldfinger with me on the flugelhorn. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And we are close to the end. We have one more official number, and I do want to tell you, we do have an encore prepared if the ovation is sufficient to warrant that. But first, some thank yous. I want to thank Highland Presbyterian for letting us come back to life again. Thank you very much, Highland. I want to thank the Dorothy Rose Smith Concert Committee, and especially Linda Schugertz, the chair, for being so gracious to host us once again. And I want to thank the ushers who will be tackling you if, when we dismiss you, you don't leave according to their instructions, because we want to keep the social distancing as you exit. And I want to thank Linda for not laughing hysterically when I suggested to her that the Auscultation Brass could fill in for the Lancaster British Brass Band on May 5th for this concert. Special thanks to the AV crew of John Holtzapple in the back, Josh Whitmer, and John Lefevre. These fellows gave up their last Sunday night while we did a dress rehearsal to get all of the equipment set up with our new AV stuff to be able to do this, not only so you could hear it, but hopefully a lot of people that are at home could hear it as well. And we do have some future dates I want to mention to you. We have a date at St. John Newman Catholic Church on June 13th. It's an outside concert at 6 p.m. We are working on a date downtown for an outside concert in July at Trinity Lutheran. And we will be performing the national anthem at a Barnstormer game sometime this summer. The band doesn't know this yet, but we auditioned for a trial of the national anthem this past Wednesday. And I got a call today from the Barnstormers that we'll be asked to do one, and that we were tied for first place in their edition. Yes. And I'm not sure who the other first place, but I have to tell you, I saw a limo with Lady Gaga license plates pulling in when we were starting to leave, so we were in pretty good company. So, despite the year that we have all been through, we want to close the official program with, what a wonderful world, and thank you all for coming.